Hi, everyone. Yep, my name is Laura Sherwood. Thank you so much for that introduction. And today we have, well, again, the title of this session is Uplifting. So what we'll really be focusing on is listening to these two amazing women that we have here, Stephanie and Ebony. We will listen to their stories of resilience and how they have learned practical lessons through failures, rejections, and obstacles that ultimately lead to a deeper sense of purpose and also new beginnings. So I'll start with introducing Ebony Rhodes. She's also known as Ebony Jade, and she is a highly motivated, creative and dedicated professional with over 6 years of experience in marketing, social media management, and content creation. She attended the University of Hartford, where she received her BA in advertising and public relations, and further pursued her educational career by receiving her master's from Temple University in marketing. She's a Philadelphia native, and she's the community outreach specialist at PECO, an excellent company. Her passion is to help businesses create their brands and connect them with the community through the use of tactics including web development, content creation, social media events, and advertising. Recently, Ebony established her own business, Jaded Petals, which is a luxury floral design company. And in her free time, Ebony loves to engage with the community through services with the youth, women, and underrepresented groups. Thanks so much for being here, Ebony.
Thank you.
Awesome. And now I will introduce Stephanie Balon. So Stephanie Balon is a second generation Pinay-American, and she's a proud mama. She's born and raised in Ramaytush Ohlone Land, which is SF Daly City. And she is of Ilocano and Visayan descent. I hope I said all that correctly. Her heartwork and hustle includes over 20 years of experience in health and human services, namely a community mental health advocacy background addressing health inequities among historically marginalized populations. As co-chair of the Filipino Mental Health Initiative of San Mateo County and expressive arts therapist, Stephanie leans on her belief in the transformative healing power of the arts, especially as it relates to her continuous decolonial healing journey. She's the co-founder and senior director of Kapwa Cultural Center and Café, which is a social enterprise cultural center in the San Francisco Bay Area that aims to increase access to culturally attuned mental health support and provide an intergenerationally engaging healing and creative gathering space for the Filipina X community. Thank you so much for being here, Stephanie.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll start with Ebony Jade, if that's okay. Super interested if you could just walk us through how you got to where you are right now, if there is anyone who you feel really has stood out and inspired you to get there, and what skills you've acquired on this journey to where you are now.
Okay, yes, of course. So I would say my journey, which you guys can tell from my bio, I do a lot of everything in regards to communication, marketing, event planning, as well as my own company now, which is Jaded Petals. And I started basically, I guess, grew a passion for communication and events while I was undergrad at University of Hartford. And there I did a lot of creating flyers, creating magazines, ads, and guess the whole nine of joining clubs. And then I would actually become the communication person for them and creating their flyers for their events that's coming up. So I guess gained a passion for it. And going on, I would say, of course, my mother and my grandfather inspired me to, do what I love to do. And in regards to my new business, which is Jaded Petals, so I actually work for an event company here in Philadelphia, which is called The Event Parlor. And the owner of the company, she really encouraged me. I would say she always has me doing something while I was doing events for her, always something I've never done before. I guess throwing out there like, Ebony, I need a 10-foot flower tower. And I'm like, what? Like, I've never done that before. But she would just have me do it. She's like, here, let's go get the stuff. You got to do it. And so that really encouraged me, made me realize that, I'm able to do it. That we were hiring florists and hiring people to do a lot of design work in the beginning. And now we're all of our events we do in-house. So like we're able to do everything from balloon arches to flowers, and I guess grew a passion for it. And flowers are very creative. I know some people may think, it's very simple, but no, flowers are like, I guess as important as balloons and events. So I guess, getting a passion for it and love it. And that encourages me, of course, she encouraged me to get started, and, people are loving it. So that's what's encouraged me to continue on.
That's awesome. Just a follow-up question. So did you always have a vision of having your own company, or is that something, yeah?
So that's something brand new. I always said, of course, I've saw a lot of women entrepreneurs, and I always just said I was fine as, working at a company. I didn't want to go through the hassle of owning it, or I thought it was too much work, or, the whole nine. And then I realized, one, is very important to just have your own company. It's very, guess if you create an LLC, I tell a lot of people now, just create the LLC, even if you don't start right away or you don't know exactly what you want to do, just create a business, because it is very important just to have your name on something and have ownership in a sense. And so that's basically what started me. So I created the LLC, not knowing exactly what I wanted to do with it. And then, like I said, I just grew for flowers because I was doing events for 6 years. So I wasn't like, my niche wasn't flowers before. But because at the events, I started being the one doing the flowers because florists would back out or, drop the ball on us sometimes. So it became my major role. And I realized, that's my business. That's what I want to do.
Thank you. Stephanie, I'll just go over to you with exactly the same question. If you could talk us through how you got to where you are now, any people that inspired you, skills you've learned along the way.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate being in this panel, especially when it comes to like uplift, because I think about before, like where I am right now, it's based on like the shoulders I stand on. And, when you ask about like who inspired me, I think about my parents. I'm a second generation Pinay-American, daughter of immigrant parents. And so that kind of like helped inform my pathway of like understanding their struggle as immigrants coming from the Philippines to the States. And yeah, so I'll speak to that a little bit later in terms of culture and identity and how the work that I do, the hard work I do, is centered around culture. But just a little background, like, you mentioned that I'm a mental health clinician, co-founder and senior director of the Kapwa Cultural Center, Café, which is a social enterprise for the Filipina OX. So it's the first in Daly City. I don't know if y'all know, if you're familiar with Daly City, but it's has hella Filipinos. There's like a lot of Filipinos in the nation. We ranked probably like first in the census. So a lot of Filipinos, and there's no center there. So, I grew up in this area, and I had imagined like, growing up, if I could have a place where I could be, to be around my people, like how that would have changed my life. And so I think about my son. I'm a mother of my 5-year-old Koa, and so I envision like, with this venture, when you talk about inspiration, I think about my parents and their struggle, but then also like a future ancestor, my son, and like what he's gonna face, to be able to have access to these resources around identity, because I think that has played out for me as a critical point of understanding who I am and where I'm going. And so, so my work is around mental health, social justice, diversity and equity and inclusion work. And so we're really trying to work on destigmatizing mental health. And so through this social enterprise Café, we're just creating a whole space, healing space for folks to just enjoy food, art, and building community, and then giving them resources around mental health and wellness. So I just wanted to name that. But so I, in terms of, how I came to this or materializing of this vision, it dates back to, because I really didn't know, in high school, I don't know what the hell I was gonna do, and I, in college though, I would say like a lot of the work that I've been pursuing is very heart-led and like soul-centered. So I would really just follow like what my passions were in terms of like art and community and social justice. And so I knew that, I at least knew that. And I had a dream. So fast forward into college, I went to the University of Washington. So I also, I majored in sociology, not a sociologist like you, but I knew I wanted to be, you know, in a place of healing, community, and all that. And so yeah, this I had a dream at 19 years old, prophetic dream, I would say. Like it was a Saturday morning, I remember, 4 a.m. and such a visceral, like I embodied it, and it was like this vision of a community center or a cafe that was adorned with artwork on the walls, you know, like different arts and crafts that actually the youth were selling. They created all of this stuff, and the youth were powering and staffing this cafe. And all the money that would go into this cafe would go back into operational, like costs for programming for the youth to gain skills, and kind of similar to what her idea, you know, like building entrepreneurship, skill building. Like this is it. Like this is, you know, to be able to provide it at no cost for folks, and building character and being, you know, just a sustainable human being in the world. And that was the dream. I know it sounds like a lot, but I held on to it, and it was for me like something that I felt like I needed to speak to. I talked to my brother. So we're talking about who inspires us. I'd say my brother, who passed away in 2013, actually, and he was the first one to say he had an entrepreneurship mind, always wanted to like think of ways to build a business, and he's like, yeah, do it. Why don't you just pursue it? And I'm 19 years old. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And so the best advice he gave to me was, you know, just start, you know, and you know, surround yourself by people who are cheerleaders for your vision. And one other piece of advice was like, you know, just do one thing every day. So I tried to do that the best I could. I think as I got older, I moved into like more self-disciplined kind of space. But yeah, I that's how I held on to the vision. And moving forward, so I was actually a director of transitional housing. So I worked with homeless families back in the day, another lifetime ago. And I did a huge career shift. So I moved into the mental health field. I decided it was kind of a blessing, like a divine kind of intervention of this opportunity called the Next Generation Leaders of Color through Compass Point. I don't know if you're all familiar in Oakland. Great organization for building leadership, but it's called Next Generation Leaders of Color. And that in that space, I felt like I gained so much insight into what it's like being in middle management, envisioning access to resources as a woman of color, a person of color, and the deficit-based kind of thinking. And so that just opened all these doors, and that led me to change my career into mental health. And then mental health was the vehicle for me to kind of bridge that dream to what was more meaningful to me in terms of my passions of healing, community, cultural exploration, and all that, and art. It just merged into one pathway. And so yeah, I mean, and I guess like I could say more about how I got to like where I am right now is not something I did alone. It's definitely was a village of folks that along the way, the Filipino Mental Health Initiative specifically, I linked up during this time, and then we landed $2.6 million in seed money to build this business, and here we are. We're about to break ground in 2023. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Thanks for sharing all of that with us. I'd like to just do a little bit of deep dive, because everything that you well, both of you are talking about, but I'll start with Stephanie. You haven't used the word resilience, but I hear that in every single thing that you're saying. And so, of course, because that's really what this session is about, I have no doubt that you ran into many obstacles, perhaps some failures, perhaps some rejections in places. And so how did you really, I mean, to be able to accomplish a dream you had at 19, is really, really impressive, right? To me, that just shows that you have resilience. And so I'm interested to know, what does resilience look like to you? Kind of how would you define it? And then the second part of my question for you specifically is, how do you teach that, especially in the community center that you have, to our listeners right now? So how do you see it manifesting in your own life? And then how would you pass along lessons of resilience to others?
Wow, yeah, it's such an important question. And when I think of resilience, I'm thinking of like reframing your mindset, of like transforming, your pains and struggles into something really powerful. So it's like this alchemist kind of thing where you can pull from the experience and yes, feel through all of the pains, and what is it that you're gaining from these moments of teaching and learning. And so I think of like the image that comes up for me is like Phoenix rising, just like, you rise above the ashes. And there's this quote, I was scrolling through Instagram and I found this thing divinely. It said, instead of being burnt by the fire, become it, So like really figuring out a way to transform or transmute what that pitfall or that misstep was into something that can be of service to yourself and for others in terms of healing and whatnot. And so yeah, I mean, I would come across like, I think the when you talk about resilience, like, who are the haters? And I think I was my biggest hater. Like I had my own, negative thoughts, automatic negative thoughts about like, am I good enough? And, what is the messaging that's coming through either from past stuff or, people who I come across who said, I don't know if you're going to be able to do that. That's a lot of, that's a lot of work. And I'm like, yeah. And, I feel like they are teachers. So the haters are teachers and they've helped me. They've reflected back like my optimal self and like the potential of where I can actually go. And so, yeah. And then I would say like, yeah, surround yourself by like cheerleaders and people, who are down for you, your village, your tribe. And also, yeah, listen to the haters and listen to all of the naysayers, because there are some gems of wisdom in that. And like, they may not agree with you, and that's okay, but then it's also a way for you to reflect on where you can improve in this pathway. So I don't know if I answered the question. I just went off there.
No, you totally did. I'm really interested also, and then Ebony, we're gonna switch back to you, but how do you see yourself teaching resilience? Because it's such it's not like a concrete, it's not like math that you can teach 2 + 2 = 4. So how do you see yourself? You obviously have learned so many lessons, passing along that wisdom.
Yeah, I think it like boils down for me, and as a mom, and I mentor some youth and like modeling, just modeling and living out these values that are I'm still learning and growing and trying to understand them myself, but then being real about it and authentic is like, things are hard, and, what can we learn, developing that learning community amongst each other and not being in isolation in your thoughts, and just talking about it. I mean, I think there's so much stigma around like being perfect, you gotta like have it all down. And really it's not about perfectionism. It's like progress, and it's not about producing, it's about process, and building those relationships. So I'd say that for me, it lies in just living out those values and then sharing and talking about it. I don't want to be the holder of wisdom around it, because I feel like I also learn from the youth or the people who I'm talking to when we engage in conversation. So just open dialogue, I suppose. Yeah.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you. So Ebony, I'm really interested in really the same question from you. I also hear from your story just such a strong chord of resilience and of, okay, I don't know how to do this. I'm just gonna go for it. And it's the only way that I'm gonna learn. And so very interested in what resilience looks like for you in your journey. And then also, yeah, similarly, like how can we as maybe an older generation now pass along that knowledge, or for our listeners, what are maybe some practical tools that they can apply in their own journeys?
Okay. Yeah, of course. So just to piggyback off of what she said, actually, I felt the same way as I was my number one hater. So before, and I believe when you asked the question previously, you know, did I always want to start a business? I believe that what was always holding me back as well. I'm starting a business, fear, you know, just thinking, well, I don't know enough information about it, so I can't start it. I don't know where to find the resources, so I can't do it. And of course, you just gotta put that to rest. Just, you know, just go for it, just do it. I would say for me personally, I would say just my faith, honestly. Nothing really happened where I was like, oh, that went out the way, so let me now go start my business, or okay, that fear is gone. No, I still have fear to this day. You're always going to have fear, whatever business you have, whether it's 1 year in, which is basically 1 year for me, 1 year in, or 5 years in, you're going to always have fear of your business because it's like your baby. It's your creation. So if anyone fails, or if it fails, it's on you. And you, of course, you don't want it to fail. So I would say, as long as you have faith and continue to have faith in it, continue to, of course, do your resources. So that's, I'm big on that as well. So I'm big on, you know, we like to joke about it, but you know, YouTube University, that's where I found a lot of information from, because YouTubing, Instagram, of course, now a lot of influencers, you know, they put on their stories or try to help you in regards to business credit, how to get established. So I would say, for me, it's just putting the, you know, the voices in your head that's saying that you can't do it, or you don't have enough money for it, or enough funding, because it's never really nothing that can stop you in regards to a business. Like, you're gonna be able to find a way. You're just waiting for the resource to basically fall in your lap, in a sense. So long as you continue to teach yourself something new, do the resources, do your homework, and just keep the faith, as in, you know what you want to do. I mean, even if you don't, like I said, I didn't know I wanted to start a floral business. However, I just knew, personally for me, I just like doing events. I like doing marketing, and I like working, in a sense. You know, you have to work to survive. So as long as you're doing what you love, and if you can also live off of it, you're winning in my eyes. And so I would say how to teach it. I would say, of course, talking about it. Like I said, that's also going into keeping up with your resources and finding the information. You're not going to always, you know, we have social media, we have YouTube, we have Instagram, but you're going to have to go out there and actually talk to people. You have to find new people, you have to network, because sometimes the resources that you need, it could be someone just living on your block and you don't even know. So you're going to have to put yourself out there and definitely talk about it, even your fears. If you're scared of starting a business for whatever your reasons, you know, just talk about it, and you'll realize that you talking about it, in a sense, is you putting a step towards it. You're doing something to get to your goal. You may not see it at that time, but you talking with people, you're gathering resources, you're gathering information. So you're still working towards your goal, or working towards your vision, in a sense. So I would say just continue to talk about it, as well as, I don't know, I feel like also with me and my little cousins, I think of them when I think of how to teach resilience. I guess encouragement, encouraging them. Never nothing you can't do, for instance, or I believe that, at least. Like, it's nothing that you can't do, and don't have fear. So just do it. And so that would be my best advice for that.
Thank you. I'm interested in, because I think we've all had this experience of being our worst enemy. How did you change that narrative with yourself and that relationship with yourself? You know, are there specific like phrases that you replaced from being really negative to positive when you have your self-talk, or is there something like concrete that you can give some advice on?
Yes, I would say, guess from doing it after a while, me personally, like I said, the floral business, I was doing events. However, I wasn't the one doing the floral designing. So after a while, you know, and then course, we all love compliments. We all love, our cheerleaders in a sense. So from doing events and doing the floor designs, just having someone say, oh my God, Ebony, they're beautiful. Oh my God, you did great on that. Or, like I said, my boss with my event company that I work with, she would just give me projects that were out the water to me, and I would just nail them. So just having someone encourage me, I would say that's definitely where my mindset, and I would say I didn't even think of it as like the day I decided to create my business, I didn't think of it as, oh my God, I'm changing my mind. Here's me, I'm creating my business now. It just seemed like the right thing to do. So long as you're focusing on what you want to do, whether you're, for instance, if you're starting an internship and you don't know if, that you may eventually want to have your own business doing your internship, just continue working on your project, working on your assignments, and then one day you may just end up like, okay, yeah, I do want to do this. So I would say that's what happened with me. It wasn't like a, oh my God, I want to do it now, and the fears, thoughts went away. It's more so it just seemed like the right thing to do.
Awesome. What I'm hearing you say is just like be actionable. Just you're not going to know all the things before you actually start. You learn it by doing it.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I'm really interested as well, just because you use the phrase reframe your mindset. So how do you reframe your mindset? And because I'm sure that you're not sitting here today and like your thoughts are always perfect now. I'm sure that you still have to reframe your mindset here and there. And I think that's huge for our youth, that's where the power lies, right? Is if they can learn how to encourage themselves, then all of a sudden there's not these like obstacles in the way that we thought that there were. So I'm interested in if you have a tactical skill, or I don't know, something strategy that you use to help reframe your mindset.
Yeah, the reframing is similar to Ebony about like having people around you that can affirm what you're doing I think is really important. Just for me, when I was 19, just knowing that someone believed in my vision was everything, and so that's the external resourcing. But I think for me, similar to Ebony, when you're talking about like faith and divine, my spirituality, I think, has been something that's helped me reframe. I have practices of meditation and prayer. I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, but like my medicine in terms of addressing those voices is my poetry. So like, I actually just want to share, if that's cool, a poem, because it does speak to like the messaging and tapping into your inner knowingness and just trusting yourself and your intuition. This is something I wrote last year in the pandemic. There was like this poetry challenge, and it says like to write about the village that raised you. Your village does not have to be made up of people. So I feel like this encapsulates like where may answer your question. It's short. So fear not, oh sweet one, I see you. You cry a different cry, a warrior cry. I taste the love in the salt you shed, the salt you sweat. The moment you feel the weight of the world, and there will be many, just know you are held. We've built a well for your tears that will nurture the lands and its people. Never forget that you are surrounded by the strength of a village. Your soul is plenty and your heart is full. You are enough. You are ready. And so that's named Purpose.
It gave me goosebumps. That's amazing.
So the reframing, I think, has come to me through my poetry and prayer. So
it's really amazing. A phrase that's been crucial for me actually is "you are enough." That for me, when I really went through my like self-discovery journey, and when I didn't think I was enough, that was the phrase I just told myself over and over. And I think it's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. I'm interested in hearing from both of you, but we can start with Ebony. If you can think of one major obstacle in your career path or rejection or failure or something along those lines that happened to you that really actually initially seemed like something very negative, but then helped to redirect you in a positive way, can you talk us through that? And then also what lesson you learned and what lesson you would like to impart on our listeners from that?
Okay, yes, of course. So I believe like everyone else, the pandemic was definitely a turning point for a lot of us. And of course, um, because I was in event planning and as well as with Pico, which is a lecture company in Pennsylvania. So I do community outreach for them as well. So I have them, and then I have my, what I call the pretty events, which is the weddings, baby showers, and all that on the side on the weekends. And of course, because of the pandemic, there was no more events. So everything, even at my regular 9-to-5 job, which is Pico, they weren't allowing us to go out. Of course, we couldn't. So everything was at a halt. And I would say that was a moment for me of what do I want to do now? What should I do next? And fortunately, I wasn't, I guess, let go from my Pico job. I was on furlough because there was no more events, and my whole, job was doing events. So it was that moment of, okay, what should I do? Do I need to figure out a new career? How am I going to, make money in a sense? And I would say after, during the time, it was a struggle. But afterwards, I look at it, I was able to create or do new events in a sense. So doing Zoom events, such as this one, I started doing them for Pico, as well as actually did a baby shower like this as well. So people just became creative. So of course, I know a lot of people on the pandemic had to become creative. But after a while, and at first, of course, they didn't want to be home. I'm like, gotta get out. This is crazy. But then I became 2 years straight working from home. Now I'm guessing I'm going back to the office actually. So it's still brand new for me, like literally 1 day a week right now. So it's definitely different. But it was also allowed me to figure out new ways to continue on with what I want to do, which is events. I do love events, all things events. And then when I created my floral business, which is just a year in, so was basically at the end of the pandemic in a sense, it just allowed me to be creative. And I think that's basically the biggest, obstacle, because that was a moment of I can't do what I want to do. So it wasn't necessarily someone stopping me or me having doubts in myself. It was more so I'm just not allowed to do it. I can't do it for my safety. So I would say that was the biggest.
And what do you think is the most important lesson that you learned from having to go through that, in particular, that you would like our listeners to really take away?
I would say that there is always a way. So I would say before the pandemic, of course, doing virtual events or doing Zoom events definitely isn't new, but no one was doing it because you just didn't have to do it. So I guess the thought of I had to be creative, had to get clientele still, had to, make events exciting. Even at Pico, we had to make events exciting just to get people to join the events and continue to fundraise because, we still had to do our job in a sense. So we just had to think of creative and new ways to get it done. So I would say just the fact that there is a way. You have to, come up with a way. You definitely have to sit down, may take longer than you think, have to really think about it. But there is always a way.
I love that. I think that's such an important lesson. There is always a way, always. Stephanie, same question for you. A major obstacle in your journey, and kind of, the major lesson that you learned from it.
Do we have time? I mean,
we've got 6 minutes.
I feel like there's
exactly.
So many obstacles. Okay, I'm gonna break it down. I'm not gonna speak so much to the pandemic, but I think like there's some points of like, understanding your vision and how you have different iterations of it, and there's pitfalls, right? Like when I first, started actively pursuing like this business, I was a case manager, and I don't know if y'all know, like the salary and just like the standard of living here in Bay Area is so expensive, and so like I try to do both. Like I try to do like I even partnered up with some friends to open a restaurant, and like we pulled out the menu. I even bought stuff for the space. It's just kind of ass backwards, but like yeah, it lost its life. Like I felt defeated because I'm like, oh, I'm pursuing my passion, and what went wrong was like, I was trying to survive. I had like my bread and butter for, to as a case manager, but then I realized, kind of like what Ebony was saying, it's like, it's not going to look exactly how you envision it to be. Like you just have to maybe just do a little bit of like chipping away at the vision, and then, but still find a way to figure out how you're going to live, right? And so along the way, I had pursued different ventures to be a vehicle to invest in the business, which was like the one opening a restaurant, that like, and then I did some multi-level marketing thing, like with a phone company, and I invested like hundreds of dollars, and I'm like, okay, lesson learned. Like I didn't think that out. Like I was like kind of the glimmer of like, oh, you can make so much money, but it's like, do your homework. That wasn't the best route. And then yeah, just real estate too. I went into real estate. Like I invested in the materials, and I had partners, I had friends who were doing it, and they were encouraging me like, yeah, that could be the vehicle, right? So I had people telling me like, this could be the way. But then once I just kind of let go of that and just trusted my intuition of like, what, I'm just gonna do it my way. I'm just gonna pursue what I love, and my passion will lead me. And that's something that a mentor of mine actually said, like, you pursue what you love, and what is life-giving, life-affirming, and the money will come. There's plenty of money in the Bay Area. Like what Ebony said, like there's a way. There is just no, I just thinking of the abundance mindset, that, and you don't have to do it alone. You do it in partnership with other folks. So I think that's where my pathway was like, okay, I just felt like I was doing it alone, but then it wasn't until I reached that fork in the road, and I met all these people who had aligned vision and dreams of the things that I was sharing, that were like, all right, let's just do this together. So, and that's how we landed on the, the seed money. So yeah.
I love that.
2 minutes.
I'm 2 minutes. I see that Stephanie, your journey has had a lot of pivots, and I think that's another definition we can take from resilience, right? Like if there's just, if something doesn't work out, you don't just give up, you look at how you can pivot, right? And the same with Ebony, with her experience with COVID. So I think we can just wrap this up. We thank you so much to the two of you for sharing your stories. Your stories of resilience are incredible. Being women of color, having businesses through a global pandemic that's still ongoing, and being successful from a mental health perspective, also a monetary perspective. I mean, it's just super, super inspiring. So thank you for sharing your stories. And I would say kind of the big themes that I learned, and I want our audience to take away, is that just start. That's like the biggest thing I learned from Ebony, that there's always a way. And then from Stephanie, I would say like that your passion will lead you, the money will come, and really work to reframe your mindset. And if there's an obstacle, pivot, because you can do it. So again, thank you so much to the two of you, and thank you to her idea of putting this on.